We're looking at subject-verb agreement, trying to make sure that your subjects and your verbs always agree. Now, the rules for subject-verb agreement are not explained in this lesson, and I'm not going to go through them because there are quite a few of them. You'll have to go to my other classes on subject-verb agreement to see the 6 or 7 rules that you can follow, or you can find the rules in my book. They're there right at the start of the chapter on verbs, yeah, and you'll see rule 1, X and Y is always plural. Rule 2, X or Y, it depends on the Y. If the Y is singular, you use singular. If the Y is plural, you use plural. So there are a lot of rules behind this topic, and I want you to learn them in other classes or from my book. However, the best way to put theory into practice is to do exercises, especially good ones. And I'm a big fan of the GMAT exam, the sentence correction part of the GMAT exam. This is an exam which youngsters take who want to go to the Ivy League universities in the United States. And I think it is the best grammar exam out there. I think it's a great exam because it's the kind of exam where you learn something. You learn a lot, actually, when you do this exam. So let's have a look at how to get the correct answer in this exam. So you can see in front of you, subject-verb agreement. And I've put 3 tips here because I think you can get all the questions right if you follow these 3 steps. I must admit, you may have to do 1 or 2 other things as well to get 1 or 2 correct, but this is the main idea. Okay, so firstly, find the verb and the subject. And this is really important. It's really useful to be able to find verbs and subjects. And please remember that verbs always have a subject. I think this is really important for making sure you don't make errors, for making sure you don't make mistakes. Okay, secondly, check that the verb and subject agree. If the subject is singular, verb must be singular. If the subject is plural, the verb must be plural. And thirdly, check all the pronouns agree. So if the pronoun is referring to a singular noun, it's got to be its, yeah, and if the pronoun is referring to a plural noun, it's got to be there, for example. And we'll see that this is very important. Remember this for later. So if we look at question 1, and you can see that all of the sentences in this exam are really wordy, and this is no exception. Noting that the price of oil and other fuel components, comma, a major factor in the cost structure of an airline, comma, have risen and will continue to rise, comma, the company management was pessimistic about their outlook for the upcoming quarter. I'm going to put this down so you can see everything, so you can see all 5 answers. And I want you to notice that option A is always exactly the same as the way the question is written. So option A is no changes, yeah, of what I've just read out. Option B slightly changes option A, yeah? And so instead of saying the company management was pessimistic about their, option B says the company management was pessimistic about the. And so you know they're testing something with this there already, and that's worth remembering. Option C changes it again. It changes have risen and will continue to rise to just will continue to rise. Option D changes it to has risen. So here's where we're clearly it's testing have or has, yeah, and so that's giving you a clue about where you need to look. So option D has risen, and option E, has will continue to rise, but it changes the to a there again. So we know you can already spot where we need to look in this sentence. But what I want you to do straight away is try to locate the subject and the verb. And if we look at that first part, noting that the price of oil and other fuel components, you might notice that there is no verb and subject. Now, I know some people would look at noting and say noting is a verb. That's a doing word. Yeah, it must be a verb. And in one sense, yes, it is. And in another sense, no, it isn't. In the sense that it's from the verb to note, it's a verb. But in the sense that it doesn't have a doer, it doesn't say he is noting, we are noting. It doesn't do that. It doesn't have let's say, an explicit doer, yeah, an obvious subject. And that's why we'll call this a participle, or in my classes, we call them participles. I know there are some grammar books that call them non-finite verbs. Yeah, a finite verb has a doer and a non-finite verb doesn't. Okay, if that helps, fair enough. But I'm going to just call it a participle. because it doesn't have a doer. But it's still, I must admit, it describes the subject of the main clause. It describes the company management. Yeah, it's the company management noting that the price of oil and other fuel components, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So we open with a participle phrase, and then we got a comma around a major factor in the cost structure of an airline. Now, this is a type of appositive. We haven't dealt with these yet, but this is where you have noun phrase, Boris Johnson, noun phrase, the Prime Minister. Yeah, that would be an appositive. When you've got two noun phrases together and they refer to the same object, you've got an appositive. And technically, the price of oil and other fuel components is the major factor in the cost structure of an airline. We're renaming the price of oil and other fuel components a major factor in the cost structure of an airline. So this is a little appositive that's interrupting. Then we've got have risen. And we can see from the answers that it's asking you, is it have risen or has risen? So that's already telling you that this is the important word. Of course, this is verb. Yeah, have risen or has risen. These are verbs. And why are they verbs? Because they've got a subject. Yeah, because they've got a doer. So what is the subject of have risen or has risen? And you've got to ask yourself, okay, what has risen? Now, a lot of students make a mistake here because they see the price of oil and other fuel components, and they've looked in the book and they've seen rule number 1, X and Y is always plural, and they think, okay, I've got price of oil and fuel components, I've got two things or more, I've got plural, so I need a plural form of the verb. And then they think, what's the plural form of have? Is it, do I say two men have or two men has? Do I say one man has or one man have? And they very quickly see that have is the plural form of the verb, and they think, okay, I need have. Now, unfortunately, that would be the wrong conclusion. That's the wrong logic, okay? Because if we look carefully at this question and we ask ourselves, what has actually risen? Yeah, because when we've got the price of oil and other fuel components, we've got a number of nouns there. We've got the price, we've got the oil, we've got the fuel components. We've got three things. Now, ask yourself, which one of those three things has actually risen, or have all three risen? Yeah, have the fuel components risen into the air? No. Has the oil risen into the air? No. Has the price gone up? Yes. So the price, is that singular or plural? The price. The price is, the price has risen, not the price have risen. So we know that have risen is definitely wrong. Yeah. I'm sure you agree, though, that we can say, like in option C, the price will continue to rise. That's still okay. So we can't get rid of option C, but we can get rid of options A and B, because price is subject, price has gone up, so price has risen, not have risen. But we can still say the price will continue to rise, the price has risen and will continue to rise. So C, D, and E are all still good, but we can get rid of options A and B. They're simply they're simply wrong because of this part here, have. Yeah, that's what makes A and B wrong. So I'll highlight those two parts. Okay, so we can get rid of A and B, and then we're left with C, D, and E. Oh, sorry. Oh, don't know what's going on here. Let's get back to my other screen. So we're left with options C, D, and E. Now, here we need to look at a different part of the sentence now, because we've checked that we'll continue to rise. We've checked that that verb is okay, and quite often in sentences you'll have a subordinate clause, which we have in here. It starts with the word that. That is a subordinating conjunction here, noting that. That subordinate clause has a verb and a doer, and the main clause has a verb and a doer. So let's look at the main clause. The company management was pessimistic about the, or the company management was pessimistic about their. So here we've got to check the verb, and the verb here is quite often overlooked because it's the verb to be, the most important verb in the English language that doesn't involve doing anything. And of course, it's that word was. Yeah, we've got was pessimistic, was pessimistic. So we've got the same verb form in all three, and we say one man was, not two men was. We say one man was, two men were. So one man was, this is singular. Company management, is that singular or plural? Well, it's a collective noun. So in formal academic English, we use singular forms with collective nouns. So management was is all good, But now we check the pronouns, and I hope you can see very clearly that they're in D and E, they both use the pronoun their instead of the article the. Okay, now there, is there plural or singular? Well, it's usually plural. Now, I must admit that you will see they and their being used in a singular sense, and it's impossible not to sometimes. And so I would never say that singular they or singular there is always wrong, but in academic English, it is best avoided. It's confusing to use a plural pronoun there with a singular management. And so we really ought to use it's or the. Yeah, and this is why option C is correct. The problem with options D and E is they both use there to refer to a singular management, and that is unacceptable. Okay, and that's why we've left with option C as the correct answer. But you can see with that question, sorry, what's wrong with my mouse today? You can see with that question that it's very important to locate the subject and the verb and check that they agree. And it's very important to focus on your pronouns. In a lot of essays, the mistake lies in the pronouns. Okay, very often the mistake is right there in the way that the student uses pronouns. So be very careful with it's and their and singular and plural. Okay, let's go on to question 2. And then I think I'll leave you to do 3, 4, and 5 on your own. But have a look at question 2, and question 2 is a very tricky question. A higher interest rate is only one of the factors, albeit an important one, that keeps the housing market from spiraling out of control like it did earlier in the decade. Okay, now have a look at this question. And again, I want you to locate the subject and the verb. It's the most important element, and that's what we're testing. Now, if you've got a keen eye, you might notice that it says keeps, keep, keeps, keep, keep, yeah, in those answers. And that would be good to notice, because what you're noticing is that you've got singular and plural forms of the verb to choose from. And that's what they're testing, yeah, in this. It's not the only thing they're testing. There's another element they're testing, actually, which we'll deal with in a second. But clearly they're testing keep or keeps. Now, this is very tricky, and sometimes it's counterintuitive, the correct answer here. But I'm going to give you a different sentence quickly, which I think I'll write above number 2. Let's just write it. Wait, and I need it on text. Yeah, can I manage this? He is one of the children that, okay, go or goes to school on a Sunday. Okay, now that looks like a simple sentence, doesn't it, really? Surely that will be an easy one to get right, yeah? But I challenge you, ask people what the answer is here, because I guarantee that their instincts will very often lead them to the wrong answer, even though it looks like a very easy sentence. Now, you can easily spot the verb here. It's obviously go or goes. I've made that clear, just like keep or keeps, yeah? And all we got to do is find the subject of that verb to choose. Yeah, it sounds easy, yeah? So what is the subject of go or goes? Is it the word, I mean, I would like you to think of it like this. The subject technically is the word that. Yeah, that is a relative pronoun. We've done relative clauses before. Yeah, and relative pronouns start a relative clause, which is a big fat adjective, describing the noun before the relative pronoun, describing children. Yeah, really, the pronoun that is standing in for children. Yeah, children go to school on a Sunday. Don't you agree? Yeah, it's children who go to school on a Sunday here. It's not one child, because a lot of students will think, oh, it's one child. But are we saying one child goes to school on a Sunday? Or are we saying children go to school on a Sunday? And he is one of them, one of those children that go to school on a Sunday. Yeah, and so if you think about it really carefully, that is replacing children. Children is plural. Children go to school on a Sunday. So the correct answer is not goes, even though most natives will choose goes. I think I would choose goes if I was just, going with my heart and not with my head. But go is correct. Go is the logical answer. It's the correct answer because it's children that go to school on a Sunday, and he is one of them. Another way of understanding this is a defining relative clause. We're defining the children. We're not defining the one of the children. We're defining the children that go to school on a Sunday. Yeah. And so this is why it absolutely must be the plural form go and not goes, even though, you know, I know that word one in the sentence, it makes your brain choose the singular form of the verb, even though if you say children that go to school on a Sunday, yeah, children that go to school on a Sunday are very happy. You'd never say children that goes. You never would. It's just that one there that's putting off your instincts or leading your instincts astray. So for this reason, when we're looking for the subject in this next one, in number 2, a higher interest rate is only one of the factors that keep or one of the factors that keeps. It's factors and not one. It's factors. That's the subject of the verb keep. Yeah, it's factors that keep the housing market from spiraling out of control, not factors that keeps. It's not right. It's got to be factors that keep. And that's why we can get rid of A, factors that keeps is wrong. C, factors that keeps is wrong. Okay, we can get rid of those straight away just because they've got the incorrect form of subject-verb agreement. Okay, so yeah, I'm afraid goes is incorrect, damn it. Most natives would choose goes, but it's wrong. And it's just that one that makes your brain think perhaps it's goes. Okay, so when now we're left with B, D, and E, and I'm pleased to say that the last part of this question is actually a lot easier if you know the difference between as and like. And I'm going to tell you the difference right now, that as is a subordinating conjunction, yeah, whereas like is a preposition in academic English. In everyday English, we use like and as equivalently. Yeah, in everyday English, we just say like or as, and it doesn't seem to make any difference. But in academic English, they want to see like plus noun, because like is a preposition, and as plus clause or plus noun, because as can be a preposition as well. But as plus clause, if you're going to use a clause, it's got to be as it did, because it did, subject and verb, it did, as it did earlier in the decade. So we must use as and not like if we're going to use a whole clause. So this is why E is definitely incorrect. Like it did is not okay. We've got to say as it did. And so E is definitely incorrect. And D, like earlier in the decade, they don't like you using like that either. They're very, very strict on this exam. And they say that's very informal to use like to mean, for example, such as. Yeah, and they want to see such as, the formal version, such as, and not like to mean, for example. Yeah, they want something like, I love vegetables such as carrots and peas, and not I like vegetables like carrots and peas. They don't like it. Okay, so this is why option B is the correct answer. They don't like and they don't like it did. Okay, so I hope that's all clear. Now I'm going to leave you to carry on with the other. Oh, whoopsie daisy. I'm going to leave you to carry on your own with the other 3 questions. Do your best. I know none of these are easy, and so please just have a go. I still think that you will learn a lot from doing these kind of questions. I know they're challenging, but they really do teach as well as test. Okay, so thanks everybody for watching. I do appreciate all the support. Please, you can find these many exercises that deal with these themes in my book. So please do consider buying this book if you would like to learn more about English grammar for GCSE, because this is what I'm doing this now for. I'm going to do a lot of classes aimed at GCSE level, really aimed at a few students. I have a new student for GCSE, and I'm also teaching my daughter for GCSE. And I think that a lot of kids are missing out on a lot of education at the moment. A lot of kids aren't at school. Literally huge percentage of children have missed out on almost a year of education. And so I'm going to start putting on GCSE stuff up there, and it's going to be free, always on that website over there, never on YouTube. Okay, so please do come along to my website. Please keep supporting me, keep coming to my site, and I hope to see you